My name is Dr. Fuller. I would like to introduce you to the mathematical world around you. Knowing how to work with percentages is crucial because they are frequently used to represent part of a quantity. Percents are so common that it is hard to walk into a shop or store without finding them. The word percent means out of 100. Breaking the word into its Latin roots also shows this, with per meaning out of and centi meaning 100. A percent is a way to represent a portion of the whole amount, similar to a fraction. However, unlike general fractions, percentages represent a fraction with a denominator of 100. Because percents are representations, they are not usable in their standard form. To do math with a percent, we must convert it to a fraction or a decimal. 3% means 3 parts out of 100. I can write it as the fraction 3/100ths or the equivalent decimal 3/100ths. Notice that all three represent the same amount. What do you think 22% would be as a fraction and a decimal? 22% represents 22 parts out of 100 and is the fraction 22/100ths and the decimal 22/100ths. You can use a percent to solve problems after you convert the percent to a decimal or a fraction. Because a percent is used with a part-whole relationship, all percent problems have three components: the part, the whole, and the percent. Only one of these is generally missing. I am making some pickles, and I need to know the correct amount of salt. Using salt to preserve veggies has been around for ages and is found in many cultures. The chemical process is called lactofermentation, which changes the texture and taste of foods. The process can preserve fresh vegetables for an extra week or two. The first type of veggie I want to pickle is a cucumber. I will make a quick pickle, which means I just need to sprinkle salt over the sliced cucumbers, give them a mix, then let them sit for an hour. I need 3% of the weight of my cucumbers in salt. I plan to pickle 200 grams of cucumbers. How much salt do I need? First, think about what you know. I know the percentage. 200 grams represents the whole amount, and the amount of salt represents the part. Therefore, I am working with the first question and am looking for the part. Remember that the percent represents the part-whole relationship. Since I cannot calculate with 3% directly, I will convert it to fraction or decimal form. Before, we determined that 3% is the same as the fraction 3/100, or the decimal 3/100ths. Now, we can solve the equation. Notice that we now have a proportion by converting the percent to its fraction form. But if I multiply both sides by 200, the whole amount and the denominator of the right side of the equation, I can isolate the variable. Simplifying the equation leaves me with 200 times 3/100 equals x. Simplifying the left side of the equation gives 600/100, or 6. Therefore, I need 6 grams of salt to pickle the 200 grams of cucumbers. 6 grams is about 1 teaspoon of salt. What if I have 39 grams of salt? What is the maximum amount of cucumbers I can pickle using 3% salt? Our previous example showed us that we could find the amount of salt using the equation percent equals the salt divided by the weight of the veggies. In this case, we do not know the total grams of veggies we have, but we know the part and the percentage. This problem represents question type 2. We can use an equation to find the number of grams of veggies we need with 39 grams of salt. Let's rewrite this as an equation and convert the percent. The equation 3 over 100 equals 39 over V represents this situation. Solving this problem as a proportion, we can multiply both sides of the equation by both denominators. Simplifying both sides gives us 3V equals 3,900. Isolating the variable v leaves us with the answer v equals 1,300. I can pickle 1,300 grams of cucumbers before I run out of the 39 grams of salt. Carrots are a hard vegetable that requires a brine and a couple of days to make a good pickle. A brine is a mixture of water and salt with perhaps some seasonings. I have 1,580 grams of carrots. My brine has 158 grams of salt. What percent of salt did I use for this brine? We know that a percentage represents a part-whole relationship. I will substitute the problem's information into an equation to express the situation. The equation P over 100 equals 158 over 1,580 represents this situation. Multiplying both sides by 100 isolates the P. Simplifying the right side gives 10. Therefore, this brine has 10% salt. As percentages represent a part-whole relationship, the part is typically less than the whole. Situations exist where a percent above 100 can occur and result in a part greater than the whole amount. Some logical reasoning can sometimes help you understand which value is the part and which is the whole. In my mathematical world, I have one little problem. I am preparing several dishes. Because salt can be bad for you, I want to ensure that I do not use too much. I am quick pickling 522 grams of hot peppers by sprinkling salt over them and allowing them to sit for an hour. I use 5% of the weight of the peppers in salt. How much salt do I need? I am pickling some cucumbers and I do not want them to be too salty. I need to use at least 3% salt, but I should not use more than 5%. Unfortunately, I forgot to calculate the percentage. I used 375 grams of cucumbers and 10 and 13 hundredths grams of salt. Did I use too little, too much, or the right amount of salt? How many grams too much or too little did I use if I was off? Next, I am pickling a mixture of shredded cabbage, green onion, carrot, and dried hot chili peppers for a Japanese dish called asazuke. I have 762 grams of veggies. I need to add 2% of its weight in salt. How much salt do I need to add? It takes a few days for lactofermentation to begin. But, just as a note of food safety, if your food smells bad or becomes slimy, don't eat it. On the other hand, if your hands and all materials are clean, salt preserving is a great way to make foods taste better. You can also brine meats before cooking them. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Institute of Food and Agriculture notes that putting meats in a food-safe container, covering the meat with a saltwater solution, and leaving it in the refrigerator for up to 2 days will make the meat juicier and even more tender when cooked. They suggest 216 grams of salt for 3,785 grams of water for chicken. What percentage of salt is this? I plan to brine beef using 10% salt. How many grams of beef can I brine if I have 382 grams of salt? Finally, what would it mean if my recipe called for more than 100% salt? Take a look and you will see a mathematical world around you filled with percents. Percentages help us understand the relationships between part and whole amounts. We often find the percent of a value. This idea that the percent of a number equals a portion is helpful in many situations. An example might be the percent of a price equals the discounted part, or the percent of a crop equals the number of plants eaten by insects. Remember that the word percent means out of 100, and you will go far.